Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, your host of the Allstars podcast. Few tech issues this week, so it's a little bit of a different background and everything. I couldn't get the banners and everything to work, so hopefully those watching on YouTube aren't too disappointed. But we still have Mikey back on board. We still have a great show this week for TLT Supercoach round 23 and head-to-head finals this year, Mikey. So it is a huge week this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Barnesy. It looked like I wasn't going to be able to make it this week, but we've decided to record it a day late to get me on. So seems like I keep coming on after a crap week, but I did say I was a bit head-to-head. So, yeah, like it was a bit of a crap week. One thing I learned from it, and I'm going to take into this week, was I didn't allow for the weather. I looked into the matchups too much and said, you know what, it doesn't matter about the weather. But realistically, if I did matter about the weather and play guys like Lekka Potosima and Jaden Campbell, I would have been better off. I would have been a score around 1,300. And so just little things like that. Like, it's a bummer. I was stubborn. I was ignorant. And this week, it looks like 7 out of 8 games will have rain. Some of them won't have much rain, but I think that also, like, makes me a bit nervous. Like, got Cleary in the dry. So it kind of makes, you want to try and target these dry games, especially with the straight C, because we're coming into head-to-head finals time. So if the rain gets really bad and we don't adjust, it could impact your sides.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, look, we saw with that Penrith Titans game how important it is, right? Because that was the game of the round as far as scoring goes, and multiple players went tons and nuts. So it can also bring games back down to earth. Like, for instance, I know we're going to talk about the trades and stuff, but a lot of people are on the Titans Souths matchup, and I would have been too, but that looks like it's going to have heavy rain. Up to 40 mils, it looked like, or 20 to 40 mils, something. It was ridiculous. It was the most rain out of any game, whatever it was. And whether that's true or not, like, we don't really know, but we saw last weekend, like, if a bucket's down, like that Bulldogs game where it was bucketing down, the Roosters game, it was bucketing down as well. It makes a big impact. So it should influence, or at least come into your calculations when you're doing your C or VC decisions, but also your sit starts. Like, I don't want to sit anyone in a dry game if it's a wet week, and I think that's really important. So in a way, it can make it easier. And look, it's obviously not the be all and end all. Like, guys can still score well, games can still score well in the wet. It's just a consideration among several, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like, example, the Bulldogs suck in the rain. Like, if it's heavy rain on a Bulldogs game, I wouldn't want to play kick out. Same goes for, like, guys like Garrick. If the rain's going to be severely heavy, even though some of them have a good matchup, I know Manly actually are in the dry game this week, but if it looks really heavy, it might be smart sitting out. Like, example, I'm leaving out guys like Tupou, Tom Starling, who's playing in a dry game. I might need to consider playing him if the rain looks really heavy, and even a pod move like not playing a Scott Drinkwater. Like, if it's that heavy in rain and one side's dominating, then you know what I mean? Especially late in the round, that field's just going to get worse. Like, one with the Titans example, I guess maybe the only plus to that matchup is they've got one of the best, like the drainage in that ground, and the field itself is one of the best in. It's a great stadium. So, whether or not that pitch will probably be a lot better than some of the other ones, but nonetheless, it is something you have to equate into your plans. And I don't think go too hard of it. Like, you saw last week, example, Cronulla in the rain. Some of those guys still, they put points on. If those points, like, you're a Ronnie owner, like, there was still points there, but it's just if you have a dry guy, look at last week, the stats tell you that playing the dry guy, probably outscored better than maybe someone you played on a wing that was a bit risky. So it sucks to have to deal with it this time of year, but that's part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could hope that it's not torrential, but it does segue really nicely into the first segment of the show this week, and that is a bit of strategy talk. Weather was going to play a part in the strategy talk as well. But the other thing that I think with trading strategy as well, things change a little bit. One of those is that you're going to look at your matchups too, and certainly with your head-to-head matchups, Mikey, when you're looking at it, if you need a point of difference, taking a guy out that's not a unique player that you both have that's going to be playing in the wet, that's a good point of difference to have a look at. But the other thing that you can do too with your trading, there's obviously been a heap of guys that have been injured. Herbie Farnworth is a notable out this week that everybody's looking to move. I'm low on trades, so I've given this a thought, and I think that whenever you've got a Herbie Farnworth out, for 4 to 6 weeks. At this point of the season, especially, like everybody, including me, just goes, "Oh, cool, let's go shopping because we've got everything to spend that we need for anyone in the game." And it's a lot of fun. But if you've only got like a couple of trades left, or even none, it's like some people have no trades, some have one, some have two. I have very few. And if you're one of these teams that does, the other option aside from trading is that you can just say, you know what, because I've got a really good 18-man squad this week, I don't actually. I could just play this squad and be fine. So I don't need to trade Herbie Farnworth, and I think that's an option that not enough teams look at. Like you waiting until you have a questionable 18 to put out on the field, until you have 3 or 4 more injuries and your depth is tested. Maybe that happens in 2 or 3 weeks, and then using Herbie as a trade piece. There's nothing wrong with that as a strategy. In fact, it might actually help you because at the moment you're trading for now when you might not need that centre wing as much. Maybe you've got 4 or 5 gun centre wings and you might have to sit somebody that ends up being better than who you bring in. When in actual fact, a few weeks' time, you might be in trouble if you've got 0 trades. So having that one up your sleeve and just having Herbie there just to go bang into a grand final trade that you can go to anybody via him because of his cash value, yeah, that's a viable strategy as well. You don't have to trade if you're that low on trades at the moment.
Oh, 100%. It's definitely the play. Like, I know it's hard to do. Like, I find it hard myself, especially at this time of year. Like, in the end of the day, I'll use my trade to do what I can to win my cashies, but it's hard. The funnest part about Supercoach is trading. 100% it's the funnest part. Like, you'll bring guys in, and this week there are a lot of good pods in the center wing. There are a lot of guys that I want. I personally want 2 this week. And I can make that happen. I've got 3 trades, and leaving one's a bit sticky, but I guess it also depends. If you're going to trade right and take these risks, and I think it's fine to do it if you're not worried about that game with the weather and you still think they're going to score well. You've just got to have a look at the depth of your squad. So if you're trading heaps and you've got like 23 to 24 playable players, where I'm currently sitting at, then I think it's okay because you've got a bit of coverage, but you still got to realize that your positions like halfback, hooker, 5'8", all it takes is one injury to that spot and you're in trouble. At the same time too, if you've got a Cronulla half hooker, you've got a Raiders half hooker, those 2 teams are the next 2 on the bye. So, like, I'm aware of the consequences if I do use 2 trades this week. You're right, Barnesy. I don't need to do them. But I think the guys that I'm potentially bringing in, I'm really going to need. And even in the wet, I think someone like, example, Lomax, who I've anti-potted for way too long.
Same.
I'm too scared even in the weather. Like, he's a general captain option this week. I'm looking at him as actually someone that could lose my head-to-heads. Like, I've lost a couple head-to-heads over the past couple of weeks. I needed to win by not having him. And I think even in the wet, Moses can really put that ball up. And Cowboys were shocking in the wet last week. So I really think, if Eels are on, like, normally a team bounces back after a performance like that, like in the Cows. But there is every chance the game's in Sydney. There's every chance that he could absolutely put him to the sword. Lomax has a 4-try game in him. And you don't want to even think about that score as a non-owner. So sometimes, like, yeah, it might be smarter to hold it. But if you're missing a big guy like that, maybe it's smarter just to grab him. If you're looking at a pod and stuff like that, yeah, I might not push that trade if you didn't need to do it. If you're looking, you know what? I have a few point of differences. I'm going all right in the round. Like, it's something you could leave later to the round because there are some purchases you can make later in the round too.
Yeah, if you've got like Carraz and Lomax already in your centre wing, then you really don't need to be doing the trade. I think that you've got the 2 main guys. It's not to say like you shouldn't. Like if you've got 8 trades or something, like just go for it, go shopping.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But there's a lot of people that have very few. And you raise a really good point about like looking at the end of the round. And this is the other point of the strategy that I would make too. You can, even if you've got a lot of trades, like if you're a head-to-head only player, especially, seeing how Thursday, Friday, even Saturday plays out first, that's a huge advantage because, if you're trading to Lomax, he plays in the last game on the Sunday. If you're already winning all your head-to-head cash comps and you're a head-to-head player, you don't need to make that trade. All that matters to you is winning head-to-head. So who cares if you have Lomax? So assessing that then and even reversing trades or just not doing them is key because that's a safe trade. And again, Herbie is a valuable trade piece down the track. He's an asset that you can trade down the track to anybody because of his value. So looking at the matchups is key too. The other thing too is that, like, for me, for my team, Mikey, my hooker spot is bad. And I've just let it be bad. And I got Wade Egan in super cheap at like 440K or something a few weeks ago and just went, I'll play him, on a good draw. He's injured and out. I don't have a hooker at the moment, but you can look at that as an opportunity if you've got a similar setup, everyone, because what you do is you vice captain early. I'm going to vice captain Cleary. And if Cleary ends up nailing it, I will loop with my hooker and not need to trade for one yet. Maybe Egan comes back next week. Maybe I won't need to trade there at all. Maybe I save that trade completely. But one of the hardest things with looping at the moment, Mikey, too, you got to remember is you don't know who to leave out. And invariably, whoever you leave out is the wrong guy, and you end up losing points there as well. So the loop becomes really hard because if you've got a good side, everybody in your squad's good. Who are you going to drop? And if you automatically have someone like at hooker not playing, that's almost an advantage when it comes to looping.
Yeah, it's definitely the hard part, and you're right. That's why if you really like the matchup, like example, Cleary has a really good average against Knights, and although Knights are in the top 4 defensive sides this year, it makes it hard. Like a straight C on him could be the play because you don't have to worry about it. That's why last week with Cleary, I captained him instead of the VC because I thought it'd be a move up on a lot of my cashies because I saw a lot of them were looping him. I thought my strategy would be straight captain him. If he goes 90 plus or 90 to 105, they're not going to be able to loop him. And then if they captain someone like Tedesco and he doesn't go too good, it's going to give me an advantage. That move there won me half of my cashies. Very simple move, but it gave me the heads up. So looking at things like that is definitely a play for both overall. But at the same time, too, it's getting to the point where you're going to want to nullify and ensure you have something on those guys' insurance. But this round, if we take away the weather, this is a very juicy round for some captains. There's like 4 guys that I wouldn't normally put a C on that I can in my side. There are some really, really good options. And it's a kind of round that if I'm behind in my cashy, I could easily go, okay, I'll go Rogue and go Campbell. I'll go, there's a Lomax. Like there's heaps of options that I think I could take depending on if I need to get ahead, catch up, or stay pretty flatline if I wanted to go maybe Tedesco, who I think's due for a bounce back. So there's lots of options deep this round. So that's also a strategy. You've got to kind of, it depends what you're playing. Like I know normally we focus on overall plays, but this time of year, I'm probably going to talk a bit more head-to-head strat, especially when I'm at 3.5K rank, which isn't bad, but I'm talking a bit more head-to-head strat, and I guess it's good for listeners too because there'd be a lot of people in the same boat that are focusing on that side of the game.
Yeah, well, even the the overall chasers, if you've got a free loop option without doing trades this week, then see how that plays out first. But let's have a look at some of the trading market. We're going to go to Market Watch, and it's an interesting week, obviously, because everyone has cash to burn because Herbie was owned by so many players. Probably the only time, Mikey, in the whole season that anybody that doesn't own Herbie is relieved because it's been a bad run if you don't have him. But the trade outs, it's pretty self-explanatory, so we're not really going to go through it. I think all of them make a lot of sense. Just about all of them are injured. I guess the only thing that I'd point out with some of them is that if you do have short-term guys like Lehigh Hopper, he's 1 to 2 weeks. I'd love to trade him out, but it's hard if you've got to go out 1 to 2 weeks and you can see how many injuries that are coming up week to week, suspensions. And then on top of that, we have popular teams like the Sharks and Raiders the next 2 weeks, like Mikey pointed out. Sometimes it can be better to hold those guys so you've got them down the track if you've got really low trades. But we're going to focus on the traded in at the moment. And Lomax is the number 1 most traded in player at the moment. Mikey, 741,000. He's been killing it. He's up against the Cowboys side that looked pedestrian last week against the Sharks. It's going to be at CommBank Stadium. He's going to be goal kicking. It's probably going to be one of the drier games out of the ones with rain. Everything points towards it being a really good Lomax week. And you know what? I've held off him like you have because I thought he's had pretty hard matchups. And the last 4 weeks with his hard matchups, right, he's gone 86 against the Panthers, 95 against the Raiders at Chio, 99 against the Broncos at Suncorp, and 41 versus the Storm, which is the only saving grace. He has a 5-round average of 82, a 3-round of 78, and a season average of 76. He has been solid as a bank, and he just seems like the easiest trade from a Herbie with the Cowboys and Souths the next 2 weeks. Pretty tantalising.
I knew during the week we were chatting and I was telling you've got to nullify him, Barnesy. Like, if there's any advice I can give, it's like we've held on for this long. You know that Lomax has a 150 in him. He does have a ceiling, and he's done this against the good sides. So if they have a real breakout game, like the Parramatta have turned a corner. They've been great the last 3 weeks. Yeah, they lost against the Storm, but they've looked like a better side. They've looked like a competing top 8 side, realistically, in the last month of footy, I think. And if that's going to continue going, and I think right now Riles knows they're done, but he really wants the team to finish strong and enter the next year into his kind of new era, and they play off the back of that. So if the players are buying into that mentality, then these matchups coming up are juicy. And I looked ahead, and I always knew that if I was anti-potting Lomax after Storm, I would nab him. And I was nabbing him either way. I planned last week and got Rin Karma in with a bunch of money to ensure I could upgrade a Lehigh or Daniel Tupou to Lomax. Obviously, with Herbie going down, I now have a way to make money on getting that, and now I have money in the bank to do another move, which is handy. But I just think now, everyone's going to have him. He's the kind of guy, like I said, you don't want to go up against. And that Cowboys left edge is they give away a lot of tries. It's like in the Cowboys team, it's like the position where they give away the most. I think it's something like 13 tries this year. I think I was listening to Marn talk about it yesterday. So that's a target for Lomax, and we haven't seen a Lomax hat trick in a little bit, and I think it's coming. It's going to come, and a Lomax hat trick. If each one of them have a line break, that's 90 points just there, and he's got a bit of a work rate. He's got goals. Like it's just. It's scary. It's very scary not to own. So yeah. And maybe just quickly going back to what you said about Lehigh. I'm a Lehigh owner. For my side, I want to get rid of him. I want to use a second trade and get rid of him personally because I have 4 Canberra, 3 Sharks. They're 2 massive finals weeks in head to head. I'm going to need the player in the center wing because so I feel like it's going to make it tough. So I feel like if there's someone I really like this week, it might be handy to buff up this week and ensure I've got some numbers for the next couple of weeks. But to that point, a big guy's been going down injured every week, so you've also got to expect more.
I'd love to trade him. I can't stand having Lehigh there. It's just that if he comes back in a week, and I'm already short on players, it's a valuable number. And I think people need to think back to what happened last year. Like round 26 and round 27, we had multiple teams resting players. We had a lot of guys out, and it was just chaos. Like people were playing that last round of Supercoach with 15 runners. Like it was just, and some of those guys were terrible. It was like a bye week. So
it could be a lot different this year, but I just think that it's tight. There's a lot of moving positions. We might get to round 27 and stuff might be locked in, but right now the top 4 aren't locked in. First place isn't locked in. The top 8, the wooden spoon. So at the moment, we could get lucky, but 100% you got to plan for restings, and there's a couple trade outs like Tino and Isaah Yeo in the top 10. I don't really agree with them. If Tino might come back, stash him, and Isaah Yeo's it looks like we've heard good news about him, so he's probably going to be back in it next week or the week after. It's not season ending or anything, so I'd be holding off on trades like that.
Like I think there's a good chance he's back in a week.
If he's not back next week, maybe the week after, but he looked really good last week. Or the week before, sorry, and even before he got hurt, so I'd be holding off on that.
Yeah, I guess it's very team dependent on who you have to trade out. Like if you've got other guys to trade out that aren't healthy or are going to be out longer term, and it's a lot easier, or to hold the trades. But I want to pose something to you. Zach Lomax is the number 1 most traded in player, 24% ownership at the moment pre-trades. Jacob Carraz at a very similar price point. He's still only in 31% of teams. So, it's a 7% difference, but that's not that much. I would actually put Carraz ahead of Lomax. And that's just because Carraz has that ceiling as well. But I just think at fullback, like we saw last week, that Carraz is going to kill it there regardless of the draw. And I think that you got to have both at the moment. But to me, I've got Jacob Carraz slightly ahead. He scored 66 points in the wet. It was a terrible game. I think that this week against the Warriors at home, it's going to be better for them. And the next week against the Roosters isn't that hard either, really, if I'm being honest about my Roosters. The last 3 weeks do look tough, though. But the thing is with Carraz, I see him as completely matchup proof. I think it's close, though. I could go either way on it, but Carraz is right up there for me as well as one of the best trade-ins this week for centre wing.
I would agree with what you're saying, but I disagree with the ranking. I'd have Lomax ahead by quite a bit over, even though I don't own him. I'd have him as over
by quite a bit.
Yeah, by quite a bit. Like, I think if you were going to have one, it'd be Lomax 100%. If you compare the draws, he was. I didn't like for Supercoach, like in attack, like he was switching from full back to center. Like, I don't really like that. If he was on the wing, then I think it'd be very, very close. But we don't know what we're going to get. And let's face it, the Bulldogs can't play in the rain. That's their kryptonite. They suck in the rain. And sorry, Bulldogs fans, that is the hard truth. So are Penrith. Penrith are shit in the rain, but Dogs are really bad in the rain. You know, another raining game this week, they're going to suck again. They just can't play in it. So they need to be training with sprinklers or something like that on. But yeah, like, look, I agree with you. If you didn't have either of these guys and you're thinking of picking up a pod, I don't think you can. You have to have these two guys in your center wing.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially with someone like Herbie going down. There is a way. He's the most expensive center wing. So it means you can get anyone you want. It's kind of frustrating way because it makes it easy for everyone. They can get whoever they want. They're going to have a little bit of extra money. So it just kind of makes it easy for anyone. So anyone that wanted a bit more of a challenge, we kind of don't get that. But at the same time, it is helping you out too. And people minimal on trades, at least it won't stop you when you fall short by 20K of getting someone. So yeah, in a green set, you need both. But I guess maybe the reason people might be going another way is there are some great guys on offer this week with good matchups, and because price isn't a worry, you really can take a stab at any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I see why you'd side with Lomax, and I think it's close. I could go either way. I could be spun over to a Lomax. I do think it's closer than what you do, but that's just personal preference. But either way, it's hard not to have both of them. So 100% don't pot up, get a Carraz or a Lomax. You need that pair, I think. But when you're looking at pods, there is some interest in Dane Gagai, who has been sensational as a fullback. And it's one of the good things about Gagai, I think. Like, normally with guys, you go, oh, look, their draw's not very good. It hasn't mattered with Gagai. He's, in the last 2 weeks, gone 92 and 93 points as a fullback. Before that, he went 104 versus Storm. He's got a 3-round average of 96, a 5-round of 78, and 688,000. Goal kicking as the fullback, the draw is mixed, but I wouldn't say it's bad. Penrith this week, that's going to be tough, although it is at home. Away at the Cowboys, a little bit easier, but a big trouble. Broncos, Sharkies, and the Eels. So, mixed bag, but as far as pods go, he's just shown the last few weeks, I think, fullback and goal kicking, it's going to be big scores for him. I think he'll be a 75-plus average for the rest of the year. That's not going to beat a Carraz or a Lomax, I don't think. But if you've already got those guys, then looking for high upside pods, I think he's there. And there's very few guys that are goal kicking at the moment that you could look at bringing in either.
They obviously need to score points for it to be relevant, but at the same time, he's a guy that I'm really looking at. He's in my top 3 bring-ins, apart from the Lomaxes and Carraz that I would be looking at bringing in for Lehigh. Personally, I think he's got a decent ceiling, and I think he's got the lowest floor out of all these guys you can bring in, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. A guy that you can play, the team gets beat, but he can still give you a 70. And at fullback, we don't have an absolute huge sample size, but the small sample size that we've got for this year and against the teams that he's done it in, just like you said, like 3 scores above 90 against Melbourne, Warriors, and Raiders. That's 3 of the current top 4. That's huge. So realistically, the draw you read out coming up doesn't faze me. Do or die next week in your cash in, you've got him as a matchup against the Cowboys. It's great if they have a game where they really surprise and get 3 to 4 tries together. He can have 4 goals and have a bit of try involvement. Like, Gagai's always been the guy that has a really good, a base power and a guy that you could stash in as a great pod in your center. And the fact that fullback, it kind of makes me like him a bit more. There are some other great pods this week. Like he's being brought in by like close to 6,000. I think that'll continue to go up, but he's only at 4%. So I still think you're going to get him at 10%. And to be honest, like I was looking hard at some of the Panthers, but my brother pointed out Gagai. I didn't really think of him too much. And then obviously all the podcasts have been talking about him this week, but I really like him. Like, I'd be lying and saying if I wasn't considering bringing him in. It's just personally the trade. If trades weren't an issue, I think he's the perfect guy to grab.
There's a couple of riskier ones as well. Like,
100%.
Like Matthew Tomoko's been coming in the 6th most popular trade, and I just disagree with this one. And like, he's someone who I talk up every now and then as a bit of a pod option, but I just think that you missed the boat. Like, Timoko's gone a massive 111, a massive 134. he's never done like 3 tons in a row. He doesn't normally do 2 tons in a row, and that's the run that you're looking for. And the game before those 2 tons, he went 53, but the game before that, he went 82, which is his 4th highest score of the year as well, I think. So it's he goes on these runs, and with run plays, you got to get on before they do it, because if you jump on now, you're not going to get the value out of it. And it's 666,000. Like, it's a decent matchup against Manly, but then they've got the bye. So if you do have Carnage this week, that's added pressure on your team next week. And then they've got Penrith in round 25. They do have the Tigers, and then the Dolphins finish up, which is a bit easier. But it's just, I just don't see him at a similar price point at almost 670,000. You don't have to go up much to get to a Lomax or a Carraz, and there's all these other options as well. So he's one that I don't necessarily agree with because of the risk, and I'm going to put him against another guy who I think has some risk as well, but it's a controversial one, Mikey. So then I'm going to let you tear my argument apart by saying that I don't love Alex Brimson this week. And I say that with a longer-term view on Brimson. Brimson is playing fullback this week. He tore it up, 117 points last week. Since he went to fullback as a named fullback in round 15, he scored 75 points a game. But if you have a look, when he's at number 6, he's 20 plus worse. He's 54 point per game player this year as a number 6. And Kinney is back at Queensland Cup this week. If he returns next week at fullback, then you're stuck with a guy that's going to give you 50s for a premium price point of 624,000. This week it might work out, particularly that South matchup looks good, but then again, if it pours down rain, maybe you don't even get that benefit. So I think that both of those guys as popular are pretty risky, and the other 3 guys we spoke about pose pretty much no risk.
Yeah, Tomoko, I agree in parts. Tomoko, I think you missed the boat. Like, not just missing the boat. Like, if he didn't have a buy, I think he's a fine option, because I think right now, if you're getting rid of Herbie and you've got all those other main guys, cash isn't an issue. So that doesn't bother me. He scored 2 doubles 2 weeks in a row, so it's going to make it hard. But yeah, it's just hard. Like, he's got a buy next week. Like, it's crucial. Like, right now, there's all these other guys we're talking about that don't have a buy. So when you put that up against them for the run home, you're gonna look at these matches and go, they're gonna average higher. I prefer to take a punt on Brimson. Personally, I do like Brimson this week. I think he's high risk, high reward. If you don't have heaps of trades, maybe it's a little bit scary with the matchups he's got coming up. But also with the fact that Kinney could be coming back. But for me personally, I got rid of him for Kinney for KO Weeks like a month ago, and I had him from round 1, and because of that, I just wouldn't look at bringing him back. It doesn't feel right. I didn't like having too many Titans. Mind you, the Titans have looked great in the past fortnight, but they're the kind of team that can just switch off. So although it might look like a good matchup this week and coming up, like, can this Titans team keep pushing hard? I think they can, but I guess you've got to kind of take back your expectations. Probably one that is in the top 10 that I'd have maybe higher than the pair of them is I think you'll agree with me, is RTS. You look at the Warriors draw coming up. You look at his work rate. I think he's a safer play with just as much upside as these 2 guys.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I've talked about RTS for the last month. I really liked him, and he's still a very affordable 617k. He's got a 3-round average of 73, 5-round of 72. I see him as really solid. Like, he's going to get you 70s and 80s, but the problem is, for me, he doesn't have a huge ceiling. So I guess it really depends on what you're after or what your team needs. Like, Brimson will be able to go a 120 game, as we just saw. RTS, I'm not sure can anymore. So I guess that's a difference. But at the same time, if Brimson moves to 6, like, his base power is 50% worse than what it is at fullback, just about. Like, it's
he'd
terrible.
probably go to centre, but Barnesy, I don't think he'd go to 5'8", right? Because there's Foran and Campbell in the halves now, so he'd probably find himself at centre.
Well, I don't know. I think that they might drop Foran. Like, that could easily happen.
Yeah, all that. Like, we're not sure. You can't guarantee. The
Yeah.
thing is, they're going to keep a starting spot for Brimson because he's been awesome for him.
Oh, he has to start, yeah.
He's been one of their better players. Whether or not it goes in the halves or centre, you're probably right. He probably does go into 5 at all. You don't know. Kinney might not come straight back into fullback. He could come back as the 14, which they did.
Well, I was going to say too, like, you could get lucky, and because Kinney had a serious neck injury and he was laid off for a long time, Hasler might keep him in Queensland Cup for 3 weeks. Like, it could happen.
It's very risky bringing him back at all, but you don't. You're right. You've also got to predict what Hasler's going to do.
Yeah,
good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah. There's also some other options too, I think, with the centre wing that aren't being looked at. I've had some bad weeks the last probably 2 months, and I've managed to weather the storm and have average weeks that still aren't that exciting just because I've nailed a few choices, and one of them was Roddy Mulatalo. Like, I haven't gone well the last 2 weeks, and I don't know. I don't even want to look at how bad it would have gone if I didn't bring in Mulatalo 2 weeks ago. He's got 91 and 98 the last 2 weeks, and his next 2 games are the Dragons and the Titans. And then he's got a bye, but then he has the Newcastle Knights at Shark Park. So, I mean, the next 3 games are great. And if you're head-to-head player, provided that you can weather that 25 bye, the fact that he plays the Bulldogs in round 27 doesn't even matter, and you'd play him every week. So at the moment, he's coming home like I was hopeful he could of the 92 average of season 2024 for the run home. He's well on track to be able to do that. So he's only 526,000, mate. He's a fallen gun. He's still under 60 points per game. He went 3 years in a row scoring 60 plus. So this was always the mathematical probability that he could get to 60 plus by having a big run home. Brian Toto is in exactly the same boat. Hard to bring him in. I reckon he got dudded by a line break last week and should have been about 65 points without a try. He's not scoring tries, Brian. Too. Yeah. So, I mean, he's against Newcastle, Toto. So when you're looking at cut-priced options and pods, these guys are still there. Brian hasn't broke through yet, but Ronnie has the last 2 weeks, but he's still pretty cheap.
Yeah, I like both Ronnie and Toto ahead of most of these other guys we spoke about personally. Like, for me this week, Toto was ahead of Gagai. The thing that worries me about Toto with them into trades is he's not 100%, and he's still killing it. But he's the kind of guy that's going to get rested because we got Paul Alamotti there, who is great. Yeah. And the fact he's there, it's not going to be hard for a week for Ivan just to go, okay, have a rest. And I want to try and avoid that if I'm bringing someone in. I think it's a waste if I went like Lehigh to Toto and, you know, he not play majority of the year. And we are versing, you know, apart from Knights are in the top 4 best defensive, and the next 3 teams we're going to verse after that are all in the top 4. I still think that Toto has a very high average against the Storm. He turned up against them earlier this year. So, like, I'm not as worried about that. I still think you can go, well, it's just the fact that I think he's get rested, or I'm scared he'll get hurt. And Mulatalo, I really liked. I was short of going him last week when Herbie went down, and I agreed with you. You've been talking about him, or you're saying that he has a really back-end high average. He did last year. You think he could do it again? I was confident he'd do it again too, but unfortunately, I already committed with 3 Sharks. I've already got Ramian. I just didn't think I could take 2 Sharks center wings for round 25. If injuries keep happening, it's going to hurt me. So it's just more so that's not the fact that you don't think they're going to go well. It's just sometimes you can't make the trade. You've got to just not do it because it's not smart. And if I didn't have any Sharks this week, I think with their draw, you have to take a Sharks backline play. And if I'd be doing it, you know, if you did Herbie down to Ronnie, you're going to clear up 300K. So if you're left with 2 to 3 trades, at least with that other 300,000, you could stash that last trade, but also use it and get anyone you really wanted in any position. Like you said, if you're in a hooker problem this week and, you know, Cleary, stinks it up and you need to go someone else, you could use that money to grab any hooker you wanted. Not that you might want to do that with few trades, but it will give you options if you did a cheaper guy and looked at it going, you know what, I think Ronnie can average very similar or more than, you know, Tomoko or Brimson that are getting heavily brought in. That might be a better play for my side. So I think you should definitely look at that.
Yeah, the money is a really good point because it's not, even if you've got that in your bank, if you get down to a couple of weeks' time and you're getting all these stars that are getting ruled out, but only for a week or whatever, and you need to hold these guys for your head-to-head grand final or for end of season glory, you have the ability to go, instead of trading somebody that's going to be of value, that's going to come back in future weeks and play for you, you have the ability to go, you know what, instead of, say, you know, Carrad's getting ruled out for a week and needing to trade him, I can now trade Kane Bradley because he's over 300K and I've got over 300K in the bank and I can get just about anyone that I need. And that's a big difference. You can go to your NPRs, to your guys who were meant to be nuffs and push them up to somebody that's useful. And then your end of season depth is much better. So, you know, having that bank there and going for that cheaper option is definitely a good way to go. Blaze Talangi I won't go into because I have for a couple of weeks, but he's sub 500,000 and he just went 75, although it was with 2 tries. And he might go on a bit of a run as well. But there is a lot of these cheaper options. I'm not going to go into DWZ. I said a few weeks ago at some point with Tenny's Lesniak will go big on the draw that they've got. He went 106. He's just as likely to go 22 this week. So can't really recommend him, but he's still sub 400,000. So there is these options lying around.
The difference in DWZ is if you look at it, both his scores above 80 this year have been with Tane at fullback. So if Tuapiki was going to stay at fullback, then I think there's potential there because he just loves playing on that right-hand side. So there's no coincidence.
If stays there too, he becomes an option
He's an option too, 100%. Chance did go to centre last week. I'm not sure if it's going to continue to stay there. They did it to switch around because Catewell was needed in the second row because they were short some forwards. So whether or not that continues, but if it did, like if I had a bunch of trades, these would be guys I'd be looking at to make multiple moves. Like you nab a guy in between the 4 to 550 and then make another play. Like this week, I definitely could see a double trade if you had the trades. And I know if we all had them, we'd be doing them. Like I know a lot of us are still considering doing them with minimal trades. So you're in the totally different end of the spectrum. If you've got 5 to 6 trades, I think you're in a really good spot just to go full throttle this round. And the ones coming up, I would be.
Jaden Campbell is a non-centre wing that's really popular and for good reason. 112 on the weekend, 115 the week before. He's now gone 59, 56, 115, 112 since he returned to footy in round 19. Having a big year, but it's virtually the same as last year's 72 average. And he's playing against South Sydney this week that had 60 put on him on the weekend. I guess with Campbell, it's an easy trade-in, mate, because he's only 619,000. You could do a 5'8" and a centre wing out using Herbie's money and being, pretty virtually able to get anyone in with Jaden Campbell, even a Lomax and Campbell double could work out this round. I can see the big benefits of it. If you got low trades, though, like me, I'll go through some of the thought process that I've had with Campbell. I really want him this week. He really scares me as somebody who will go down again because every year he does. The last 2 times I've purchased him, he's been injured within a week. And it's just something that happens with him. And the Titans season isn't great. So we know that if somebody's got a niggle or a little bit injured, they're not going to need to push through. They're not going to play them. And that's a worry for me on the run home, particularly if I've got him at a 5'8" spot where I've only got one backup. And that could be an issue with depending on what backup you've got. If you've got lots of trades, then it's a no-brainer. And it doesn't matter about the weather. You just go for it this week with Jaden Campbell and hope that Souths capitulate. But Souths do have troops back, we have to say. The week before last, we thought that they were going to capitulate and they were very competitive against a poor Sharks outfit and went down 14-12. If it's that type of game and a bad Gold Coast Titans, come in, Campbell's got a low score in him. He's in away versus Sharks. He's then got the Warriors before he's got the Dolphins and then the Tigers in the last round, which won't matter to you if you're a head-to-head only player, that Tigers matchup. So I like the trade-in. I would love to do it if I've got a few more trades. And it certainly could pay 100-plus points this week. But there is always the other side of the coin where it might not be as good as what it appears on the surface.
Yeah, it's probably one of my better holds of the season, holding him through that small patch and just thought the 5'8" position was really crap, so I'm just going to keep him there. And look, didn't play him last week, learnt my lesson. He's got too high of a ceiling, and he does have a 150-plus game in him. We've seen it. We've seen it last year. He has it in him, and if he's going to do it, it could be this week. But you're right, you need the Titans to show up from the last 2 weeks, and I think a lot of people will look to put the C on him if Cleary doesn't go big, and I'm very nervous doing that. We've seen him, like you said, doesn't take much for him to go down hurt. The Bunnies, last week, really played with their halves are very inexperienced. They didn't really have a dummy half. This week, they've got Mamazilis and Havili back. They've got Humphreys back. Latrell lurking on the bench. They could be a bit more competitive than we think, and I still think they're the kind of team, I don't think, Bennett would want them to get the spoon. So I think, we might see a bit of a fight. So it might not be a slam dunk of a maybe captaincy play, but yeah, he's owned by 14%, 5K bringing him in. I expect it to be a bit more. Percentage will go close to 20%. But when you're looking at guys who could do the most damage this week and whom are the most scared not to have, Jaden Campbell would be at the top of the list. But you could definitely, there's 10 to 25 mil predicted on Sunday out of the Goldie. So, he does have a 30 to 40 in him. We have seen it, and he would require to go big this week. He would need to ton up.
He's got a 6 in him on the right day. Don't worry.
Yeah, he would need to ton up for the 3rd week in a row, and maybe it's not a slam dunk move as everyone's saying it is, but I'm an owner, so I don't have to worry. I guess my only worry would be, is he captain worthy? Like, definitely if you're behind, I said it earlier, if you're behind at the end of the round and you're versing someone that doesn't have him or has a different captain and you need to catch up ground, yeah, I'll be looking at that move 100%. But yeah, it's a tough one. If you're low on trades and your 5'8" are decent, it's tough. If you got the money from grabbing a centre wing and you can do Lycan to Campbell, I can understand why you may be considering that. Depending who your other 5'8" is, if they have a bye coming up, you might need the cover. So it makes sense to go Campbell. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
I tell you what, we'll hit on the biggest ball pod move of the year for a big balls pod before we go into the lineups. We're talking about the same game here. South Sydney and the Titans are the second last game of the round. Okay, second last game. The Dolphins play in the middle on the Saturday night at 7:30. Latrell Mitchell extended bench. Now, you very well may know before that Dolphins game whether he's not extended bench anymore, he's going to play. I know it's his first game back, but when you're talking about big balls pods, you're talking about desperation. Mitchell could not come back at a better time. Playing the Gold Coast Titans, he averages 92 points against them with a high of 150. He could absolutely come back and go 112 points. Like, that is a very Latrell Mitchell thing to do. And he's only 644,000, so he's quite affordable. I'm not saying that this is a move that many people should look at. As far as if you don't want any risk, there's a lot of risk with it, Mikey. But if you're desperate and you get to halfway through your matchups and you need to do something crazy, he's one of the best players to save you this week. He's got the best matchup. Souths have got a few wins. If he's in, it's a much more competitive game. I've seen crazier things come off, and that is a crazy one. But I tell you, I would love to be able to have the balls to do it, but no, I'm not going to.
I love crazy plays. That's a play that I would 100% do, so I definitely warrant that play. I don't have a fullback to do it, but 644, break even of 40, and like you said, very high average against the Titans. His last 3 games were 150, 115, and 112. And then not only that, his next 2 games, like if he's back this week and you need a Hail Mary for head-to-head cash, he's your guy. He plays Parramatta next week and the Dragons, who he also averages pretty good against. 113 was his last game against the Eels. His average isn't as high against the Dragons, but if he comes back and comes on, I know he's very injury prone, but if he comes back and has a wet sail and he's just absolutely firing, that move could pay off. The only catch side to that is obviously the re-injury risk, and they do have a bye in the head-to-head finals week, so that is a bit of a killer. But if I had a bunch of trade stash and a free fullback slot, it's definitely something that I would consider because the price is right, the break-even is right, and I guess a break-even doesn't matter as much, but the Bunnies draw is good. And
I'll tell you where the break-even matters to jump in on the break-even. In round 26, he could be 100 grand more, and you might be able to just 750k straight trade him to anybody if he's in your flex spot. That's a good point. Handy.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. 100% agree with that. And yeah, I think the matchups are key, and because the Bunny's spine is very weak at the moment, he's going to need to do a lot more. So we know what Latrell can do when he's firing. So definitely big balls. Big balls.
I tell you what I like about it more too. Like, we talk about the Titans having nothing to play for. I feel like the Bunnies will still always compete. And under Wayne Bennett as well, those sides don't really give up. They'll keep playing. Whereas the Titans side, when they've got stuff to play for, they still give up in games like at the start of the year and stuff. Like,
it's
they're not going to play for Hazard, and they're not going to play even for their jersey these last month of the season. Whereas Souths, I think, will. So it is a bit of a difference, I reckon, in the mindset of some of the players.
This is almost a spoon bowl. They're both at the bottom of the ladder, and a win over the other is huge in the context of avoiding the spoon. So there's a lot of matchups this week where teams need a win to get one up to get into the 8, and the same could be said for the spoon. So to be honest, I really like the matchups this round, just personally as an NRL fan. I think it could be a real good round of footy. Just sucks that there's weather around to ruin it.
Well, let's have a quick talk about the matchups and go to that. First of all, before we do, brought to you by oneworldcourier.com.au, these matchups. great sponsor of the Allstars podcast. Don't have the graphic up there today because of our tech issues that we had, but onemorecourier.com.au. They are a great courier that does courier or shipping, or that you work for one that needs it. They are your people to look at. If you go online and have a look at their website, they basically compare the market, pop in whatever you want to do, and they'll tell you all the different carriers you can choose from and the prices. You just choose whatever carrier that you want, and then they take care of all the shipping and everything for you. It's that simple. When you sign up for an account, it will say to you, where did you hear about us? In the free text area, right? NRL Allstars podcast. They'll take great care of you and give you a nice little rate to start with as well to try them out. So go and try it One More Courier today. And also to support the podcast, the other thing that you can do is make sure that you subscribe to all our channels. Subscribing on YouTube is super important. Subscribing on iTunes and Spotify also is. So please go and do that. It's a way to support the podcast and also the free content that I put out there. And you can also jump on to Sporting News Australia and check out the articles that I put up there as well. On to TLT, Mikey. The first game is the Storm and the Broncos. Reece Walsh was the top scorer last round. Ryan Pappenhausen is back. That looks like the matchup in this one. But I tell you, I have to say, I have no idea what to make out of this. Harry Grant the week before last turned up, and then he threw up a pedestrian 52 last week. I was super glad I didn't trade him in because I thought about it. And this one could be anything. I really have no idea how it's going to go. And for that reason, I think it's a bit of a shot in the dark if you're going to VC anyone in this first game.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just going to add to this, which I think will be handy, is just the weather forecast as well. So for this one's actually one of two dry games. So this one's fine. So you'd be playing all your Storm and Broncos, but I agree with you. Even if I was a Walsh owner or a Pappy, I wouldn't want a VC, and that is because of the next game that we have.
Yeah, let's just move to that, mate. This next one, drum roll. The mighty Newcastle Knights versus the lowly Penrith Panthers. This one, you have to. Let's just say you certainly have to have a VC on Cleary, don't you? Like, if you're not going to VC him, then just see him because he's back in form. The Panthers are scoring points. I know that last week's game wasn't a good one for the Panthers. Like, they almost lost to the Titans. They could have easily done that, but they still scored points, and Cleary's at the center of it. So I've got the VC on him myself. I'm playing all my Panthers and pretty excited for it. I've seen people selling Dylan Edwards. There's no way that I would do that this week.
Yeah, his kicking game's been really good, and it's what's been really helping Penrith out. He has a very good average against the Knights. It's one of his better ones. It's one of his better ones. So that's what would scare me not doing it. But if you did want to be different with the rain, so then this game's got 5 to 15 mil. So you could go, okay, you know what? This weather, I think, the Knights' defense has been good. Maybe like what we've said, all the options that there are, we haven't yet, but I've alluded that there are a lot of captain options this week. Personally, if there is other guys I would like to VC over Cleary, I don't think I can do it. I think it'll be very, very risky for cashies. I think, you've got to nullify a guy like Cleary. But if you did want to be risky, there are guys out there to antipod him. So I don't think I'll be doing it. But yeah, I think he can. He's got a ceiling in him, even against these Knights. Like if Panthers, Ivan's spewing at how they played last week, they could show up against the Knights here. But I don't think it's the easiest of matchups. Like, it looks like it on paper, but I don't know if it is. So,
yeah, I think that if you want to pot away from Cleary, the pot away is just a VC, not C, just to give yourself options.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's what I'll be doing. The Manly Sea Eagles go to GIO Stadium versus Canberra Raiders. A couple little points in this one. 66 minutes is what Tapani played last week, and that was really encouraging. Hudson Young needs a try. It's been a while. I reckon against that Manly edge, he's going to get it. He's going to be running up at DCE. I think Hudson Young's a special to score a try this week. And a really good trade-in, actually. He's been a bit quiet lately, but I think that he's a bit of a forgotten man this week. I think he's a really good trade-in. But I don't reckon that there's any C or VC options in this one, mate. But I know that you think a bit differently with your mate, Tom.
Yeah. I disagree with you, for sure. Not only that, let's talk about this is also a great weather game. It's fine. So if we are going to get all that rain, we have to look at the matchups. You can't really do anything in that Broncos-Melbourne's game if it's first. So this game you can. If you VC Cleary, you can do something in this game. And Raiders lost to Manly last time in Canberra, and we're at the Supercoach Drink West thing last year. I've already alluded to that, Barnesy, and it might seem crazy because look, Manly have been letting me down in the betting and in Supercoach the past fortnight, but I don't know why I still have belief in them because they've got to win this one. They lost to the Roosters last weekend, which was a big one. And if this is a dry game, they have to perform. Not only is he going back to fullback, he loves playing Canberra. And in Canberra, his games, he's got 3 tons in his last games against them, 150 his most recent. It's going to take every little bit of balls to captain him. Like, I'd love to VC him. I think he's a great VC this week, but that means not having anything on Cleary. So it's hard. But a part of me, if I think the rain's going to come and it's looking like it's going to be a wet round like last round, maybe I take my own advice. I learn from it. And Tom captain is definitely a play, and it's a pod play, and it's definitely an all or nothing. The only thing is Raiders coming off a loss last week. They are in first. I think Ricky will be absolutely spewing. So that is the part of me going, the logical side going, to trim down your expectations. But I still think if this is a dry game, I think this could still be maybe a little bit more high scoring. But even if it is, I still think Tom can score decently enough. Maybe just not as big of a ceiling as what, the numbers might say. But he's definitely an option, Barnesy. I know you've been trimming him down all year, but he's
I haven't been.
an option because of the weather. I know, but over the past month, as me being an owner, you being an owner, he's definitely an option this round. Purely if you're factoring the weather, makes him more of an option.
Yeah, I do really like the weather, and I could see him scoring well. I see it as pretty risky to put the C on him.
It's very risky.
And
high risk play.
He's been scoring better at centre than what he has at fullback this year by a large margin. So,
but he's
a little bit of a
back
worry.
His fitness at centre, and if he's
here we go. Here's the narrative.
And mind you, have a look at last year at round 23. He turned the corner and he went boom, boom, and I didn't own him for any of that, and it was a very painful watch. And
I still believe he can do it. I'm not writing him off. I still believe he can do it.
And mind you, he's also a sneaky trade in my opinion. I think you could trade him in because the Manly's draw in the next 3 weeks is great for head-to-head finals. So as someone that, owning Tom hasn't been the greatest ride this year, and I said I wouldn't get him back, and I did. But I'm now going to the fun part of the ride because the draw and the matchups for the head-to-head finals is the main reason I've held on to him.
Yeah, I don't mind him as a trade-in if you've got the room to get him. I don't like trading out some of the other fullbacks. Yeah. And to be honest, I'd probably rather just take a plunge on Latrell Mitchell with this matchup this week.
I think I prefer Tom over Latrell, but they're both pretty close. Latrell's going to be a super pod, where Tom's just going to be a pod.
Yeah, and I think if they were playing at home, I'd like the Seagulls more. But look, they looked pretty average for 2 weeks now. And they're playing at Canberra, and Canberra's coming off that loss at home. It's warning signs. I don't even know whether I'm going to play Ruben Garrick at this point or not. So I
wing in a must-win game. He also loves playing Canberra. It's hard. Like I'm looking at the numbers, and I know Raiders are a different side, but they've got to win this game. They have to win.
Well,
they
didn't win last week. So
yeah, but the weather. That was one of the that was a shocking game in the rain, and trimming my expectations. If it was another heavy rain game, I'd probably sit out Garrick too. But with this one being fine, they've got to win this one. I'm not saying so. Canberra don't have to win this one. They can afford to drop another game. They don't want to, but they can.
It depends on how much you want Ricky to go off. He's already gone off last week.
Agreed. I still think Canberra will win this one, but it's just if you think Manly can fight them for that win, then there's Supercoach opportunity. That's all I'm saying.
Dragons and the Sharks. We got Nico Hines coming off 77 points last game, which was slightly disappointing because they absolutely killed the Cowboys, and 77, you'd expect that to have been 100 plus, but he didn't quite get there. He has a 120 average versus the Dragons and 182 point high. It is ridiculous. It is the best average that anybody has against any team in the NRL in Supercoach. 120 points he averages versus Dragons. It is away, but it's only at Cogra, not a win. And at Cogra, it's like a 20-minute drive from the Sharkies. I really like it this week for Hines to go well. He is a definite pod C. I don't think the people will jump on him after the last few weeks he's been popular and he's not delivered. This looks like 100 plus to me. So pretty good one, except for the fact that he and Cleary are both halfbacks, so you can't VC and C unless one of them is in your flex spot, which makes it tough decisions. But it also means that if Hines is in your flex spot, it is a massive, massive pod C this week, and it could pay dividends based on the numbers, mate.
Yeah, well, the last time he played at that stadium, so you said it was in Cogra, he scored 180 at that stadium. So
Crazy.
There you go. But then that kind of shows if you're ballsy enough not to have something on Cleary, and you've obviously got your Cleary Hines combo, and say you VC Tom, then it opens up a captaincy for Hines. So maybe now that we're kind of deep diving into it, there is a reward to the risk of not having it on Cleary, but you would then just have to think Hines is going to score better than Cleary. And the rain doesn't bother me for the draft. So this game is 1 to 5 mil during the day, and then 5 to 15 mil, likely heavy winds, so that could impact. But the Sharks showed what they could do in the wet weather, and I thought going into last week's game that they wouldn't be too bad. They scored points. They do play a bit more direct when it rains, but there was points on offer for Hines last week, and they still did spring the ball out left. If they, there is opportunity here. I like it as well. He did score 57 against them this year, and the Dragons have been great. Although they've been losing a lot of games, they've kept all the games to the 1 to 12 margin, and they have been in all these games, and a win against them hasn't been easy. So that's also something to take into consideration.
The Roosters are in a bit of a must-win themselves against the Dolphins this week.
Huge game.
It's a massive game for them, and Teddy has only got a 5-round average of 61 at the moment. He's more than due. He's got to come good this game, and I know that people will say, no, it's crazy, but I'm pretty keen to go the C on Teddy if my VC on Cleary doesn't work out. Last game against the Dolphins in round 9, he scored 130 points without a try at Tedesco, and it was a massive performance from him. And the Dolphins, I think, were better back then, mate. They've got a number of injuries at the moment, including Farnworth going down, but including other guys as well. And I think they're weaker this week. So a big game for the Roosters. I'm going to play all my boys because I think that the Dolphins are fading a little bit. But look, it's an interesting matchup because, the Roosters played well last week, but you never know what you're going to get from them. Likewise, the Dolphins have got guys out, but they seem to have these games as well where they can really turn up, and it's a must-win for them too. So it is a bit of a tough one.
Just a quick one. Is it Indigenous round this week? That's something I forgot to mention. I normally do.
Indigenous round.
Nico Hines, man. I remember last year I targeted on Indigenous round. Some of these Indigenous players really... Jaden Campbell, sorry, Barnesy. But I remember last year my strategy was captain a guy in Indigenous round, and I know it worked. So honestly, all of them are buff on some of these main Indigenous guys. I really think they play up for this round. It's a huge round for them, and love watching this round. I love seeing all the cool jerseys. I think there's some really good jerseys here. But back to the Roosters and Dolphins. I agree with what you're saying. I think the Roosters can win this one, and I'm not playing all my Roosters. I've got such a stacked side for this week. I don't have Daniel Tupou on, but I wanted to have a look a bit at the weather and then decide to play. So
Daniel Tupou this week, I tell you.
I know, Barnesy, but looking at the Dolphins' targets and the positioning, I think their weaker side is obviously their left by the stats. So I think it'll be a mark. If I had him, it'll be a Marky Mark week to play him 100%. I think it's going to go down his way, personally. And is why I'm not playing Tupou for now. I want to try and get him in, but I just have to leave another centre wing out. And I really like Ramian against that edge at the double to Moko. So, I agree with you with Tedesco. I think if you're going to go up in a head-to-head matchup and someone not have it on Tedesco, I think that's huge because he scored 130 against him this year. He's looking for a bounce back. I know some people might say Sam Walker's the reason he hasn't been scoring well. I don't think it's true. Maybe only one thing to add, Barnes, is if I did trade out Tedesco a fortnight ago, I wouldn't have been unhappy about it because he's been pretty shit. But
let's see how that plays out though, because if he goes I know. Average of 95.
This is short term, 100% short term, but it's a win for now. 1 to 5 mil of rain, so it's not too bad, and it is at Suncorp. Which the last game these two played this year was at Suncorp too in Magic Round. So he's going back there. I think he's the safest captain play if Cleary doesn't work out this round. And if you can get him as a differential, for me, it's going to be hard to take one of those riskier guys if I can take Tedesco as a differential captain. I'll be doing that every day of the week this round.
And because there's so many options, I don't think he'll be as popular as what he could be other
Yeah,
weeks,
'cause
and he's
everyone's
also
gonna
been
look.
down on form too.
It's
But there's a
just
couple of guys mentioned there that I think are not mentioned this week that are options. Nwangane Tuaze is still owned by 25% of super coaches, but he's only 515,000 now. I wouldn't mind bringing him in this week if you need a cheap guy. And likewise, Sam Walker, if you had a spot to bring in someone in your flex and you didn't want like a Latrell pod play or whatever, he scored 90 plus last week coming up against Katoa. I think he's in for a big one as well. And it's got to be said, the centers, I don't believe in the centers. Max Fainai and Tavita Nafahu are the two centers for the Dolphins. I think either side could give up points for the Dolphins if the Roosters are on.
Angus is a good play.
Yeah, we need to motor through the last couple so you can get yourself to work, mate. But the Dogs and the Warriors, I'm just going to go out there on a limb. People are saying captaincy on Karaz. Look, I think that it's safe, but I don't know how I feel about this game. And the Dogs, in like you said, in the wet, makes me a bit wary about
1 to 15 mil. Yeah, if it's raining, I play Karaz. I'm not playing kick out at all. I think this matchup isn't great for him. And if it's raining, if it's raining, honestly, I'll switch my tip to the Warriors. I keep not switching it. Should have switched it last week. I was too scared, but yeah, I won't back. Sorry, until I see an improvement by the Dogs in the weather. Last week they lost my faith, but yeah, I wouldn't be captain in this game at all. But yeah, you play Karaz no matter who he's, like you said, he's a bit matchup proof.
Titans, Rabbits, play everybody. And
a lot of Indigenous plays in this one. Power up.
Yeah. Well, we spoke about the captaincy and stuff. I mean, you mentioned Jaden Campbell. You know, he's a bit of a big balls one, but it makes sense. He's had a better floor this year. I want to move on to the last game so we can get to it. The Eels and the Cows, though. Certainly a Pottish play is going to be a Lomax. He's got the great floor, and like you said, he's also got a good ceiling with how the Cows looked last week and that wing. Man, he could easily go 2 or 3 tries, like you said. But the other one that I think is not spoken about that I had a look at is it's time for Scotty Drinkwater to come to form. You know, if they're going to bounce back at all, it's a good week to do it. I know the Eels have been improved, but they can still let in some points, and Drinkwater can easily still go a big score on anyone. So I don't mind him as a bit of a pod Hail Mary because it is the last game of the round. You do have that option to maybe change your C from the game before or something earlier in the day to maybe a Scott Drinkwater for the upside. I don't think the odds are that it comes off, but I don't think he'll score badly either.
Jake Clifford's back. Purger goes back to centre, so that's huge for that as well, which I kind of like. But like I said earlier, if you need a captain to save you at the end of the round, you've got 3 options right there in Lomax, Strinky, and Jaden Campbell. So if you leave your captaincy late and you don't go Tedesco, which was on the cards for me, I'd be looking at doing something like this. But just quickly, Barnesy, before we wrap it up, I forgot to say it earlier. Just a quick, a bit of a different one to end on. I was working a couple of nights ago, and I was working out on the roads and stuff like that, and I had the inspector come, and I was chatting him for a little bit, and after doing a couple of sentences, he's like, had a weird realization moment, and he asked if I did Supercoach, and I said, yeah, I did, and he goes, you on the Allstars pod with Barnesy? Yeah, you, Mikey. And I go, yeah, it's a experience. And he listens to a lot of the podcasts, and he's a weekly listener of this show, Barnesy, and recognized just my voice because he obviously listens while he's driving. And I just wanted to give Ricky a shout out for we had a good chat about Supercoach for the rest of the night. So I thought it was cool for someone just to recognize by my voice, and he's an avid listener of this show, so loves listening to the Allstars personally. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Ricky before we ended up.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Ricky too. Thanks for listening every week, mate. Listeners like you make me get out and do it every week. And at this point of the season, I've got to tell you, it's a pretty hard slog when you're getting towards the end. So thanks very much to Ricky and also everybody else for listening. Appreciate the support. You can jump onto YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes and subscribe on all of them. And also go to our great sponsor, oneworldcourier.com.au if you have any freight or shipping needs. Mikey, thank you very much for jumping on, brother. Good luck this week. I hope you do well, although not too well if I'm versing you in anything.
Yeah, I don't think we are, but hopefully we'll meet each other later in the finals because we're in a lot together. But thanks, guys. Good luck this week, and get planning. It's going to be a big one.
Certainly is. Good luck with all your trades, everyone. Thanks very much for listening and your support. Can't wait to talk more footy again with everyone real soon.